5 Patriot. You know, I saw this piece in the in Yahoo News. And you can say, oh, Yahoo News. John Hull, is the writer, attended an AP lunch with the president. And he wrote the headline, Obama indignant and ignorant at AP luncheon. Before I get into all this good stuff, my sincere hope, beyond more people reading the Constitution, my true and sincere hope is that people who are on the fence, who consider themselves apolitical or independent, start seeing progressives for what they are, which is ignorant and indignant. I hope the pyramid of pseudo-intellectualism comes crumbling down. Like, I kind of want to be the one to shoot an angry bird at it. Because that's what we're dealing with here. Pseudo-intellectualism, and the more pseudo-intellectual somebody is, the more arrogant and condescending and insulting they are. You can watch Lawrence O'Donnell for 5 minutes and realize this guy is pure pseudo-intellectual. Because he's so full of hate, he's so insulting, and you see this in Bill Maher. You see it in Keith Olbermann. You see it in Elliot Spitzer. You see this need to just insult people. Because when it comes right down to standing on firm ground, they can't. They can't stand on principle. They can't stand on philosophy. They can't stand on history. They can't stand on morality. They can't stand on anything. And what's amazing is, for all of this desire to improve society, have you ever noticed that the people who claim that they've descended from heaven to improve society, to make the life of the people better, never want to involve themselves in anything related to the people? It's like elite progressives who never shut the blank up about public schools send their kids to private school. They never shut the blank up about how the government has to control health care, and the first thing they put in the legislation is something that allows them to escape it. It's like, I don't care how miserable I make you so long as I'm in control of you. So long as the school you go to is the one that I create. The health care system that you involve yourself is the one I create. I know what's best for everybody. And if it's miserable, believe me, I'm not going to involve myself in it. It's fascinating. The people who constantly want to improve society always seem to make it worse. Again, this is something you'll never get when you're dealing with pseudo-intellectuals. When you can't get an answer out of them, it's because they don't have one. Okay, so you believe in public schools. Why don't you send your kids there? You're not going to get an answer. Because the real answer will relay the truth. Because I don't believe in the public schools. Oh, you wanted to save GM because you think it's a great company. Why are you driving a Mercedes? Well, because that would betray the real answer. That would portray the real answer. I don't believe General Motors is a good company. That's why I drive a Mercedes. Well, you think the idle rich and the acquisition of wealth is a bad thing. Why do you invest? Because that would portray the truth. Because I want to be rich. You can't get answers out of these people. Because for them to actually answer anything about why they do what they do would portray the truth about it. Which is the opposite of what they say. You conservatives too. All right, you give me something, present to me my own hypocrisies on this program. What is it that I advocate for that you see me unwilling to involve myself in? Well, give me any conservative. Rick Santorum wants to ban porn. I don't support Rick Santorum in that. And as long as Rick Santorum isn't home watching porn, it's not hypocritical. Well, you know he is. No, I don't know that he is. 1-866-95-PATRIOT. You got to hear a good portion of this piece. President Barack Obama attended an Associated Press luncheon Tuesday, during which he took several questions. Naturally, the topic of the warning he issued to the Supreme Court on Monday arose. Just as a cornered badger will lash out, Obama, clearly on the ropes, lashed out at the Supreme Court on Monday. That is what the court does. It overturns unconstitutional laws passed by Congress. Even AP Chairman Dean Singleton pointed this out in a question at the luncheon. Now, we're dealing with the Associated Press here. I don't know Mr. Hull. I don't know his political persuasions. I don't know his ideology. I don't know if this is purely op-ed or is he repeating what he saw at the AP luncheon. But when you're called out by the head of the Associated Press, it's not like Barack Obama was dragged into a Heritage Foundation, forum. Also, there was never a quote-unquote strong majority, or the Democrats would have not had to use parliamentary tricks and downright conniving to pass the bill. A strong majority would have meant the bill sailed through. Quote, "We have not seen a court overturn a law that was passed by a Congress on an economic issue like health care that I think most people would clearly consider commerce. A law like that has not been overturned at least since Lochner, right? So we're going back to the 30s, pre-New Deal," unquote, Obama said. This from a self-proclaimed constitutional professor. But this is like the guy who said, "I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV." Obama is really only a lecturer, not a professor, as reported by factcheck.org. First, Lochner refers to Lochner v. New York, a 1905 case dealing with working hours of a baker and the attempt to regulate them under the guise of health. Unless he's referring to the Lochner era from 1890 to 1937, but this is not pre-New Deal. The New Deal began in 1932 during the nomination acceptance speech of the tyrannical left-wing hero Franklin Roosevelt. The Supreme Court has ruled on several Commerce Clause-related issues since Lochner, quote-unquote, where the government tried to use the Commerce Clause to expand its powers, including Wickard v. Filburn, 1942, United States v. Lopez, 1995, and United States v. Morrison in 2000, just to name a few. Perhaps the dumbest thing Obama said at the luncheon was, quote, "The burden is on those that would overturn a law like this. This is indirect conflict with the Constitution. The 5th, the 9th, and the 14th Amendments ensure that the burden of proof falls on government when taking liberty or property from a citizen. Obamacare does both." That's the truth. The burden is not on the Supreme Court to justify why it's overturning the law. The burden is on the burden of proof is on the government to prove that it has the constitutional authority to do this. If the government wants to force somebody to do something, in other words, to take a liberty from them, to encroach upon their liberties and their freedoms even more, it has to prove why. Now, unless all 309 million of us have been convicted of some crime and therefore up for losing life, liberty, and property, the government's case doesn't hold water here. But this is nonsense. How is this guy the smartest guy? If you want to say he's one of the slickest, one of the most agile, one of the most savvy, well, I'll give you credit. I'll give him credit where credit's due. I mean, nobody thought a one-term no-name senator would walk right into the White House, and he did it. That takes a little talent. Smartest guy ever? I highly doubt it. By the way, if he's the smartest guy ever, does he really think he could run these programs all by himself? 1-866-95-PATRIOT. Indignant and ignorant. I don't know what's worse. Did you ever think, how offensive is that to a progressive to read a headline that refers to Obama as ignorant? They're constantly telling us this is the smartest guy ever. And when you boil it down based on fact and history, he's actually ignorant. No, Sarah Palin's ignorant. No, this is a demonstration of ignorance right here. When you don't know the actual purpose of the Supreme Court, when you don't know the history of cases you're citing, when you're claiming things are happening that haven't and things that haven't happened did, you're ignorant. Pseudo-intellectualism. The old insanity is the new sanity.